Yeah. I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. Yeah. I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. Yeah. React if you have to. Yeah. Don't know the time, just know that I'm one of a kind. Yeah. What's on your mind? Yeah.
I'm ready to go, baby. Let me get after this.
Still in my prime, just know that I'm here.
Pondoff's Anonymous.
Yeah.
Season 2, Episode 2.
We're doing it.
Chris Pondoff. Hosting Jacob Miller. What's up?
What's up, Chris? What's up, buddy?
And the one and only Jeff, the Liberal Allen. How are you, Jeffrey?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's great here in beautiful Belleville, Illinois.
Yeah, we are remote again, remote tonight. We are going to officially be in our permanent studio.
Next week?
Next week.
Yeah.
I sound kind of douchey saying the studio. I mean, it's an office, but it's just a spot.
Oh, it's a studio.
Yeah, it's a studio. So I am excited for this episode because we have a very special guest that's going to join us throughout the duration of the episode. And let's see if he can take the handoff. If I had wings, I would fly. Let me contemplate. I glance in the cut and I see my homie Nate. Do you know the rest? 16 in the clip and one in the hole. Nate Dogg is about to make some bodies turn cold.
There you go.
What's up, Nate Dogg?
Regulators, mount up.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
He's instant offense.
Yeah, bro.
I just can't handle that fucking Chiefs blanket in the background, man.
Dude,
that's just
I can display that on a larger scale.
The Chiefs.
Like. Yeah, man. I was a hater once in my life too. It's cool.
You worked your stops.
Yeah, the thing about it is, man, is like it's easy to talk shit from the bench, you know? And like when my team's not in the fucking playoffs, I can chirp too, you know? It's all good. Especially
he's taking shots at my Bengals.
Team was not in the playoffs because of your team. I mean, it is what it is. We're on the brink of history. We're on the brink of history. Everything you say negative has seriously no weight. I hate to be rude, but it just has no weight at all.
Pondoff's a Bengals fan? You're a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Born in Cincinnati.
Listen,
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
A team that didn't make the playoffs and home of the worst chili on the planet, Skyline Chili. If you've never heard of it, don't hear about it. Don't go to it. Don't try it. It sucks.
Listen to this, guys.
Cincinnati.
I was born in Cincinnati. Lived there for about 1 year. Moved to Belle Vegas, Illinois. And the St. Louis football Cardinals had left for the desert. And I learned mathematics by grading my grandparents' bookie sheets. And as we tally up the winners and losers on Sundays at my grandma's, she's like, you should be a Bengals fan. You were born in Cincinnati. And they had a quarterback named Boomer, and the rest was history. Been a long 35-something years, 41. So started my gambling career when I was about 4.5 or 5. Thank you, Grandma. And ever since, won the Super Bowl against the Rams in 21. Then the referees and Roger Goodell fixed that shit. Don't hate the Chiefs. It's a issue in St. Louis right now. That the St. Louis Chiefs are getting so much love. I mean, everywhere you look, there's these Mahomes jerseys, and the kids are wearing more Chiefs shit than they are Cardinals shit, which is weird.
Listen, I don't disagree with that. I'm from St. Louis, born and raised a Blues fan and a Cardinals fan, and love anything inherently from the city of St. Louis, including the Rams. Mm-hmm. I've just been a Chiefs fan my whole life, so I also have a I don't want to call it a resentment, but ill feelings, or if you will, towards the people that are bandwagon fans, or let's say fans of the Chiefs in the last 5 years, which I think is who you mean to attack, not
Not Natty Nate.
Nathaniel. No, not
Okay.
Big Nasty. No.
Not Big Nasty.
I've been a fan since we were 0 and 16,
one in the
man.
hole.
Come on.
I just became a
Listen,
fan because of Taylor Swift.
In 2012,
Tay-Tay,
we
baby.
literally won 2 games. We were 2 and 14 before we hired Andy Reid. I mean, come on, man. I've been through, just like the Bengals, the worst of the worst football my whole life.
Yeah.
So
And
don't
that's
knock
his
my
rock
hustle,
bottom
man.
story.
I'm just now having fun.
There we go. I'm glad you're having fun. I'm happy for you. Even if you got the zebras in the tank, I'm happy
Yeah,
for
man,
you.
let's go.
But congratulations on the success of your Kansas City Chiefs, St. Louis Chiefs. The problem I have is that the Chiefs owner, the Hunt family, was a huge voter against like the Rams staying in St. Louis because he wanted. I mean, obviously it's worked out great for him. He's captured both sides of both borders of Missouri and making a lot of money, and so he's a pretty smart guy. But yeah, with the radio show I listen to in the morning, we sponsor it. Illinois Recovery Center does, and a couple other entities I'm involved with sponsor. It's called The Morning After. They observe the chiefdom that's here in St. Louis now. And it's just kind of fascinating. But I'm happy for you. You were at both playoff games, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Nice.
Were you wearing a referee jersey or like a Mahomes jersey? I forgot.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah, both. I got the referee shirt with the 15 on it.
You had a yellow flag in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Mahomes, you sneeze on it. Flag.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Man, I'm happy you're on this show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy you're part of this team. Full disclosure, so Nathaniel Carpenter is our Director of Business Development at Illinois Recovery Center. And gets a lot of people to change their lives. And he's a special guy. He's most importantly a dear friend and a brother now. And has a really powerful recovery story. Probably hits all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And
thanks, man.
Learn a lot from you. And I'm not going to kiss your ass too much, but you're a warrior, brother.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I don't want to sound too cliche, but I often say that probably multiple times a week that I'm blessed and highly favored. And I say that as a direct statement towards like my story, what I've been through and where I am today, and try to have like the least amount of ego behind that statement as I possibly can. But I mean, it's true, man. And I'm sure we'll get into some of it tonight, which I'm excited for, but I can't thank you guys enough for thinking of me and asking me to be here. I'm grateful for it, man. I'm grateful for any opportunity someone asked me to share on any kind of platform, because ultimately it's, I truly believe this. And again, sorry for the cliche, but somebody sees in me something I don't necessarily see in myself. And that again is another blessing. So I'm happy to be here. And like you said, brother, the two out of the three of you guys absolutely are that to me. Jeff, apologies, man. We're just getting to meet each other.
Getting to know each other, yeah.
Jacob's been in my life since day one, man. And Chris, you've come along and been a big part of it and an absolute blessing. I love your family and you're a genuine, awesome guy. But one reason I'm excited about this opportunity, man, is because, Jacob probably has the most knowledge about my story, we've been in each other's lives a little bit longer, but really there's a lot of people that don't know that side of me,
Sure.
That I've been clean almost 9 years. So, I forget a lot of stuff and it'll come back and it's like, damn. So I'm excited to get to share this. A lot of people I think that'll hear it are colleagues and coworkers and peers of mine that know me well, but they know one side of me, which is a good thing. I'm excited to kind of talk about a little bit of the stuff that got me here too. So again, thanks all to you guys in the podcast, man. This is cool.
Yeah,
well, welcome.
We are really excited to have you. And what's one thing that I want to point out is it's 9:00 on Tuesday night. We're doing this recording and appreciate you making the time. We're right now herding cats, getting this thing together. Because we couldn't wait any longer to get this podcast launched. And, we come together with a is a whole list of potential guests, from people that have battled and found hope and recovery and live a really good life in recovery, to experts in the field, to, family members that have lost loved ones. We have a lot of names, but Nathaniel, you were at the top of my list to be the leadoff hitter and be our first guest of season 2 here. And something else that's pretty exciting is that as we're doing this, we have some people that believe in the mission and the podcast. So Nathaniel, you are our first guest sponsored here by a partner. Bertarelli Cutlery is sponsoring our guest this evening. My friends, the Bertarellis, have been doing knife sharpening on the hill since 1967. They're on Marconi Avenue, 1927 Marconi, and Marco and his family business serves the restaurant industry, primarily here in St. Louis and the Metro East and West County. And one thing that's been really cool about Marco and his team over there is as they've had staffing needs, when they have staffing needs, they call us first and see if that we have somebody, maybe an alumni that's looking for work. They have been touched by this mission and are helping us shatter the stigma. So we're highly grateful for Marco Bertarelli and his team over there at Bertarelli Cutlery. And we know, all of us and people listening, that if you work in the restaurant industry, you are touched by or in it or recovery, addiction, and this disease is alive and well. It's tough hours. Some of the jokes that you make about the back of the house of some of the busiest restaurants is either you're in active addiction or in recovery, and not a whole lot of between, because I also noticed that a lot of people in the back, and chefs are some of the most creative thinkers, and for some reason there's some overlap with artists and creativity and self-medicating. So they're a really cool partner, Bertarelli Cutlery. They have a retail shop on Marconi too. You can go in there and get steak knives, and they'll cut your finger right off if you're not careful with them. They're the sharpest knives I've ever had. We use them for everything at the house, from cutting bread to butter to ribeyes, to anything. So thank you to Bertarelli Cutlery for presenting us Mr. Nathaniel Carpenter. So Nathaniel, I want to start at the beginning, brother. As I've gotten to know you, you've inspired me, met your family, but I want to start at the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah. So I was born at DePere Hospital in St. Louis and raised in Washington, Missouri.
Okay, so you're a Hoosier. Got it.
Yeah. Franklin County, man, hillbilly at his finest. That's right.
Yeah, Jacob's over here giving you a fizz. Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's funny about Jacob too, not to break his anonymity, but I'm gonna. He's from Union, which is like the rival town of Washington, if there is such a thing in small town USA. But it's like 7 miles away. And meeting him in recovery, early on in recovery, I was like, geez, there's a whole gang of you fuckers just down the street. Like, where were you guys? And I'm talking about heroin addicts, right? Like, I was a heroin addict in Washington, Missouri, and there's this whole group of awesome individuals right down the street, literally 7 miles away, that I never knew of. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Were you guys beating the shit out of each other on the football field, or?
No. So Washington was a bigger town, bigger city, whatever. We were a higher conference, so we played different schools.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Washington. I hear it called Washington.
That's how it's pronounced, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So Washington,
you grew up.
Missouri.
So that's where you grew up, is old Washington, high school in Washington.
Yeah, I had 2 addresses in just under 30 years. Yeah,
nice.
25 years.
So when did it? Would you start drinking in high school? How did it progress? How did it start, and how did it progress to where we're going with this?
Yeah, man. So it's funny you ask, because it started early for sure. Like, I think pretty similarly to a lot of people in recovery, especially people that got clean young, but it started early. No, it didn't start with drinking, man. I grew up in a part of town, if there is such a thing, okay, quote unquote. So don't kill me here with my terminology. But it was closely related to like Section 8 or HUD housing is what I would describe it as. And not because I know that's what we were there under, but that's what the community was, right? How I describe it as an adult was essentially the part of town that child molesters and drug dealers rented in because they were allowed to rent in this isolated place in town. I don't know. Can I mention it in here or no?
Yeah, whatever it goes, brother. It
was called South Winds. So everybody from Washington, don't laugh at me, but we called it the Dirty South. And it's funny to call it that, but there's a real reason we called it that. And again, this isn't the inner city, right? This is a smaller town, but this is the isolated bad part of that small town. So anyways, I grew up there, man, and I often talk about when asked when I'm sharing my story and different versions of my story at different platforms, I'll touch on this. I think that me getting going, ripping in the streets and stuff and doing the things I was doing, drugs specifically, came at an early age because of that, right? Like, I guess the term is product of my environment. I didn't go out when I was 12 years old looking for drugs. My mind wasn't developed enough to even come up with a term like that. I say that drugs found me. And not to be too cliche, but that's exactly what took place, man. Like what I was, and I know this from later years from growing up and all the stuff that we'll touch on tonight, I'm able to go back and kind of like identify certain things. I was trying to feel something without knowing it. You know what I'm saying? Like there was something missing I didn't know something was missing. And I know that from my first experiences with drugs at a young age. So I was specifically 12 years old.
When you did what?
When I started smoking weed.
Weed? Yep. Okay. Yeah, yep. I was just curious what your...
Yeah, sorry. And it came...
The gateway.
Yeah, it came
drug?
quick,
Can you call it that?
Can you call it a gateway drug? Yeah.
Well, you're my expert.
You call it a gateway.
Okay.
Everything's a gateway drug if you used it first.
There we go. So you started smoking weed pretty young. Throughout high school. You know, you're probably not getting any pussy because, I mean, look at you. I'm just kidding. But, you know,
very big.
No.
Fish fan, probably.
Here's what's funny. I was sexually active before I used drugs, which is part of the problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
She blind?
She might be today. I don't know.
Shit. I'm just breaking balls, brother. You know,
you're good, man. You're good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that Washington, Missouri had a little ghetto, if we call it that, South Wind.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's well known. You know, That's why I try to be careful with my terminology because I don't want to be disrespectful or like this is just how I describe it. You know, like
that's all right. Yeah.
That's very much what it was. You know.
I get it, and we're not. You know, it's where I grew up. There it is. You know, we see it. I've seen it, and we can get into this. You know, poverty, I think, is just horrible, obviously, and it's stigmatized as well, like anything else. And it can be the root of a lot of, whether it's gang violence and, you know, babies having babies, and it's to me, it's I learned it being a foster parent that
here's
levels
the thing,
of
man.
Poverty that I've never seen before. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Like
you're all right.
I
this
think
your show, baby.
At the very least, it exposes you to things that you may or may not be, intended to be exposed to by your parents or trying to be exposed to as the child, right? So I think inherently it just makes it harder to make good choices. That's my experience. Like I wasn't looking to do the shit I was doing, but everybody around me was doing it, and I got some sort of validation when I partaked in that behavior and those different things that we did with the people I did it with. So man, and that's the void I'm talking about. So the first thing I remember feeling was love, right? If I go back a little bit farther, and forgive me if any of my family ever listens to this, but the first thing I remember not feeling was love, right? So the first actual feeling I can identify with feeling as a child was I say it like this, the absence of love, right? So fast forward to explain that void that I'm talking about in the environment and where I grew up and everything that went into it. When I did the things that we did and my peers did, it validated me. I felt a part of something, and it just so happened to be that something wasn't good and wasn't productive, which started the snowball of active addiction, of a hard life. And I think that is the thing about being a product of your environment and what you were just touching on, like bad neighborhoods and stuff like that.
And you mentioned hard to make good choices. What I see and what I've seen in my, limited purview is that it's not necessarily making bad choices. It's making a choice out of a group of bad choices. There's not the list of multiple choices. There's really not a good one to be chosen from what I've seen in some of the, children growing up in poverty. But
dude, I remember I always had a lot of friends, right? I was always somebody that got a lot of attention, and that worked against me, which we'll talk about. But I gravitated towards people gravitated towards me. So I had different groups of friends, right? And I also excelled in sports, and but I had this dark side, and I always did, even before age 12 when I started smoking weed. Like I said before, that was sexual activity. So but I remember my good friends, quote unquote, that had both parents and, lived in a better part of town and more affluent, right? Parents had better jobs. There were more resources, stuff like that. When I would go hang out with them, I remember there's so many different situations with different parents of those friends that are coming to my mind right now. But embarrassment would be one of the words, because of my lifestyle and my upbringing and the things that I experienced, and noticing the stark difference between their lifestyles when I go over to their house, just making subtle connections like that as a young child. I remember vividly. And when I would go back home, I'd be dropped back off, as we're talking adolescent years. I didn't want to go, when I first got there, let's say it was Friday to Sunday, it's the weekend, I'm going over to my friend's house. Friday, it took me a while to adjust, because things were so different. They did family dinner, they had food, right? There's all these different things, parents didn't smoke, whatever. And you take me out of my environment and put me in something like that, and there was an adjustment period. But by Sunday night, boy, we had so much fun,
Sure.
I didn't want to go back.
Interesting.
Stuff like that I think about, and I'm like, damn. But then, like I said, the other sides to it, man. On the other hand, I had friends that were just like me and grew up just like me and did the things that I did, and I found a lot of joy in those, and I found a lot of love, what I thought was love in that, and that ended up in handcuffs. That ended up in getting expelled from school. That ended up all the things that you can imagine that come, criminal activity and everything else in between. And so there was always this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is what I identified as today as an adult, because that's how it was, man. Until slowly over the years, as I got older, all of those good friends that I had or whatever, started doing other things, started getting girlfriends and going to college. And then the difference between me and them got so great.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Yeah. That it was like being, metaphorically speaking, being consumed, being swallowed, Now it went from, 50% of my time was with these people and the other 50 was over here, to zero. I was doing this, and I was the friend that had the median. You were these friends would say, how do you go over there to those people's house? And then those people would say, how do you hang out over there?
Yeah.
I did. I hung out with trailer parks and mansions, man. Everything in between. It's crazy.
You're diverse.
Yeah, man.
I like it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I tragically hear a lot of shame in your, description of going over to friends' houses that may, be more affluent, like that can carry a burden, and then some, you'd said it earlier, lack of love. Like that's a recipe for some self-medication. So, yeah, it's brutal, man. So when did it transition from weed to when you describe yourself as a recovering heroin addict? Am I right?
Yeah. When I was 14, I started smoking crack.
Jesus.
Yeah, man. Like, and not to be funny, but
no, it's all right.
All it took was one. Like weed was cool. I remember I didn't smoke weed and like my problems were solved. Again, I'm 12 years old. I don't even know what problems I fucking have. So I certainly don't know that something's been solved if it has. But as an adult, absolutely, that's not what was taking place. In fact, I didn't even like the shit. I'm like, anything you're breathing that's not oxygen causes pain. Don't do it, right? At 12 years old, I'm not used to taking in smoke. So I remember doing it with some friends, and I'm like, it's fucking stupid. But I knew it was supposed to do something, right? So what did I do? I came back for more, naturally, because I can't be the one person in the group that doesn't feel this shit. So, I had the keep coming back mentality long before I knew what the hell that meant in a good light. But yeah, 14, man, started smoking crack. And I'd love to tell you, to be honest, I'm 14 years old, right? I'm young. It was not a full blown drug addiction at that point in my life. This was just when I experienced with them. But I do very well remember where I was at, what I was doing, what things looked like and what things smelled like when I took that first hit. And no pun intended, man, that's all it took. One was too many. 1,000 was never enough. It started with that. I'm from Franklin County, Missouri. If you don't know about Franklin County and the drugs associated with, it's been that county's had documentaries done on them on National Geographic on their task force specifically related to the methamphetamine outbreak in Franklin County. We were known for that. So, using crack at 14, at 15, I'm hanging out with meth cooks and learning how to shake bottles, do different things like that, like things I shouldn't be doing with much older individuals than myself. I was also hit by a car when I was 14 and broke my leg. My left leg, I broke the femur and the tibia and fibula in my left leg. And so I already had a predisposition to drug addiction, I believe, and also had my taste, right? I had my senses changed, or my DNA altered, if you will. So when I started taking the pain medicine from the doctor, it was like, it was over, and again, this is hindsight. Hindsight is 20/20. This is my story looking back. At the time, I didn't know anything about opiates. I didn't know anything about Oxycontin or anything else in that category. But I believe, I could be wrong about the timeline, but I believe it was about 6 months. I was in a cast from my toe to my hip and my left leg. I had to, relearn how to walk. I couldn't bathe. I couldn't do anything. I was bedridden essentially for 6 months.
No joke, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's right. It's the biggest
leg,
bone in your body, so, and I'm not a small person. So, man, I started doing opiates. That was my introduction to opiates. And to say that I loved the feeling is an absolute understatement. I thought uppers and amphetamines were my jam. Turns out they're not, so that was taken away after a period of time because I was an adolescent and because there was addictive properties, obviously. And, I didn't run to find heroin again. I was young, didn't know even where that was, but I hung out with the right people already. You know what I'm saying? So,
sure.
I couldn't have been a day older than 17 when I first tried heroin. I was transitioning from my junior to senior year in high school. I was not a senior on paper. I got a high school equivalency by way of GED test after my fourth year. to get my technical high school diploma, but I didn't graduate. I didn't formally graduate. I had 10 or 13 credits when I completed my high school equivalency. So
Were you just skipping school, or
oh shit,
just
dude.
high during it, or both?
Yeah, I mean, my mother could attest to this probably better than me. I was all the things we've been talking about, man. Like, I was a rebellious, angry child. You know, I grew up the youngest of three. My real father wasn't in the picture. My stepfather raised me, who is my two older brothers' real dad, which I don't know how much time we do or don't have, but
all night, baby.
My mom had my two brothers with who I call my dad, who raised me in the 80s. They met early out of high school, had two kids. They broke up. Fast forward to 92, my mom had me with a guy she worked with, who's my biological father. And then they separated, and my mom remarried her first husband, which was my stepdad, my two older brothers' dad, in 95. So I was 3 years old. And he raised me from then on up.
Gotcha.
But there was a lot of abuse, man. There was a lot of verbal and physical abuse. And so I'm to be frank, I hated growing up, man. I hated my childhood, you know.
Sorry, man.
I was a rebellious, angry child. So when you ask like what happened with school, man, like that's a loaded question.
Sure.
You know, I first got arrested when I was in 7th grade. And I thought it was cool to get walked out in front of everyone in the cafeteria in handcuffs. I mean, like, that's when I said earlier, attention would work against me. This is what I'm talking about. Like, if I had to put my hands on somebody, I enjoyed the arousal. I enjoyed the attention. Again, we're touching on that void, right? And the feelings. I quickly learned how to manipulate people by way of lashing out, using my anger. I got a lot of attention. I got a lot of oohs and ahs, you know. I'm a big guy. I'm a fast guy. I was an athletic guy. I'm a strong individual. And so, man, when it came to physical altercations or like getting busy, I was quick. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, again, product of my environment. Like, we did that shit all the time. So I was either kicked out, in ISS. So these are real examples. I set the record at my middle school in 2 years for write-ups in 2 years. It was like 148 or something, and nothing to be proud of. In high school, my only successful year was my freshman year, and I was on the B honor roll. I did well my freshman year because here's that pull, right? We talk about the split time, the split personalities, if you will. I had these friends and I had these friends. Well, I was really, really good at football, and football was my first love. My dream was always to play in the NFL, and I excelled very quickly. Football was a game that I picked up at an early age and was good at without any training. So when I added training and coaching and different things to it, I excelled very, very quickly. In 8th grade, my team won the state championship. I got a gold medal for that. I'm very proud of that, even though I was very young. So rolling into high school, I was talked about amongst my coaches in high school about being the first freshman to ever start varsity, right? Well, the coach wouldn't let me. The head coach wouldn't let me because that would have thrown salt on one of the older guys that had come through 4 or 5 years prior to me and went to college and was like the other big name in that high school. He didn't start as a freshman. So they weren't going to allow me, not because I didn't have the talent. I'm just speaking on this will come back to the story in a second.
You're right.
Sophomore year, I started varsity, and I didn't make a lot of friends, right? Because the older people were mad that I started because I was better than them, and I fucking loved it. I loved it. So again, we're talking about the intention, right? Like, I loved negative attention, positive attention, anything. I don't care what it was. I loved it. I lost. This is crazy. Like, and my mom and I have talked about this as an adult. Like, this is how she describes my sophomore year. So I told you I did well because I tried a little bit in freshman year, which is why I got the B honor roll. I've always been very intelligent. I've just never applied myself. My sophomore year, that's that 16, years old demographic. I got my license, still hanging around those people. I'm kind of walking that really fine line. Football is what was keeping me alive, 100%.
Sure.
But my mom describes this as the day she remembers my life going down the toilet, for lack of a better term, because I got kicked off the football team, dude. And this was an accumulation of events, right? Football was the only thing I held in high regard, not my family, not school, nothing, right? Football was the only thing I cared about and the only thing I tried to obtain and tried to maintain. And still, the disease of addiction wouldn't allow me to manage that, right? The disease of addiction still won in this area of my life. But I was good enough to believe that I didn't need to go to practice. When I went to practice, I either hurt somebody or I hurt myself, which was silly because I practiced like I played. And quite frankly, I had extracurricular stuff that I wanted to get to, right?
Sure.
With my friends that didn't have a football team to be on or weren't in school, were already dropped out or whatever. So I just didn't go to practice, man. And what happened was one day, so I was a sophomore in high school, starting varsity. And if you were on the varsity football team when they played on Friday nights, when the freshmen played on Monday, the varsity team would go stand on the sidelines with the freshmen in their game jerseys, and they would encourage the freshmen on, And so I was down there. This was halfway through the season. We had a 10-game season. We were 5-0, okay? And I was down on the sidelines with my colleagues, or my peers at the time, cheering on the freshmen. And remember, a lot of those individuals didn't like me, especially the ones on the defensive line and the offensive line, because that was my position. And I started above them. So you had juniors backing me up, right? Yeah. Well, the offensive line coach didn't like me either. And he singled me out in front of everybody. He came down there and told me to go watch the game in the stands. Now, it's an actual thing that the varsity team is allowed to be down there, hence everybody being down there. When he walked down there and told me in front of everybody to get my stuff and go up to the stands and watch the game, I lost all control of my emotions. And again, this is in front of people, right? So here comes this rebellious attitude again that loved this negative attention. There's a crowd right here. There's a game going on. So I got excited. I got loud, and I started causing a scene like I do everywhere I go. And naturally so, as an adult in his position, he wasn't going to stand for that. And he was also a loud hillbilly ass dude that, had a big old fat chew in his lip and just real country, and didn't like me. He already didn't like me, so I wasn't doing myself any favors, and I had something to prove mentality. And if you were an adult or a police officer, like, good luck. I had an ego the size of the state. I wasn't, and if people are watching, like I'm telling you, this is a trend in my story. So fast forward just a little bit, that week, I didn't go to practice the rest of that week. I was mad at somebody who wasn't my coach, so I wasn't going to go. Well, Friday comes and it's a away game at Duchesne. You know where Duchesne is, Chris?
Duchesne?
Yeah.
So I don't know that dialect. Duchesne.
Yeah, it's a private school in St. Charles County.
Duchesne, isn't it?
So whatever.
Duchesne or Duchesne?
I think it's Duchesne.
Washington?
It's Duchesne.
Right,
whatever.
Anyway.
Doesn't matter. We had an away game
It's your
there.
story, baby.
We had an away game there that Friday. And after school, I went down to my locker, got my bags, and went to put it on the van and then get on the bus with everybody else and put my headphones in. And Coach was his name. Let the cat out of the bag here. He had a son that played on the team too.
We're gonna edit that out.
Yeah, fuck him.
Hey, settle down.
I'm sorry. I got spiritual principles in my life. We'll get to that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that.
Work your steps, baby. Work your steps.
So I'm sitting on the bus, man, getting ready. I'm looking out the window, listening to my headphones, getting locked in. And here comes this coach out the side door of the gym. And he sees me, and we make eye contact, and he points at me and tells me to get off the bus.
He's got a hard on for you, sure.
Yeah, he's got a hard on for me for sure. And I'm like, no, I'm not getting off this bus. So he goes over to the van and he opens the back of the van and he finds my number was 67. He grabs my bag of pads, takes it out of the van, sets it on the sidewalk, closes the van, and walks away, obviously indicating that my pads aren't going with everyone else's pads, meaning I'm not going to the game. Again, we have a crowd of people. The bus is packed. We're ready to go. So I get up and get off the bus and start getting loud, and he's walking away from me, telling me something like, "You're not playing, you're not going," something like that. I blacked the fuck out. Well, the only way I could think to handle this was to make it worse. So
Sure.
I took all my pads and I grabbed my helmet. I threw it down the sidewalk. I took all my pads out. I started kicking them. I was acting like a child. So one of my best
you were
friends,
a child, just
right,
to
yeah,
remind you, with a lot of trauma, brother, and
acting
a drug
as
addiction.
if one of my best friends, his name was Anthony. He was the other defensive tackle. His parents were in the parking lot. They were going to go to the game. They go to every game. And I went over and found them. They were like I called them mom and dad. Like, they were very, very, I was very close to them. And I was crying. I was very upset. They were like, what's going on? I told them. They said, get in the car. So I went to the game with my friend's parents and sat in the bleachers and watched the game. And we got destroyed. And I wasn't, and that doesn't even matter, right? The fact, I just had to say that we lost our ass. And
Because the big dog was in the stands,
dude,
baby.
Of course my ego tells me that. But I was so heartbroken, man. I can't even describe. This was a moment in my life where it was palpable. I remember sitting there. I remember everything that involved that night. And then a lot after that, I don't remember. But what I do is the following Monday, going down to the head coach's office, I think maybe trying to go to practice or reconcile something. And, he brought me into his office and he was upset. He was like, "Nathaniel, what you did was uncalled for." And I have an ego, man. I was a rebellious child. I was not going there to necessarily apologize. I was going there to say, we were 5-0. We lost this game. I need my shit. Like, you know what I mean? I need back on this team, or I need to be, I don't even know. Right. Well, basically what he had said to me was, I tried to give a half-hearted apology, and he said, "Nathaniel, your opportunity to apologize was Friday, during all of these events, or Monday when the fallout with the coach took place, or any time in between there. You're coming the following week. We're going to have to sit you down for the rest of the season. And you need to focus on your grades because they were plummeting. You need to have a good spring, and we'll see you next summer. We need you. We want you." He said all the most encouraging things he could say, but as a father and as an adult in that position, he was trying to send a message. I just wasn't going to receive it. And that's where it all started, man. If I could give you one event in my life that changed everything, it was right there. What happened?
Your mom even said that, right?
Yeah, my mom will say that today. I came home. That was the decision by the coach. I was hurt beyond imagination, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I get emotional just thinking about it. The next week, I broke up with my girlfriend, who I had been with for a couple of years. My first real relationship. Cared a lot about her, but I was getting ready to go down a dark path, man, and I didn't even know it. And I was 16 years old. And everything after that was exactly that. So I dropped out of school before Christmas. That was in October of, let's say, 2009, I think. And I dropped out. I came back.
Bottom fell out.
I got kicked out. I came back. I got kicked out again. This all for physical altercations, either in the weight room or in the parking lot. Somebody was talking to my girlfriend. Somebody owed me money for weed, like whatever. I would do drugs with my friends.
Full of piss and vinegar, man. I mean,
yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. So I never was able to come back, man. And what was supposed to be my formal senior year, the fourth year I was in high school,
right,
was 2010, 2011. And the principals, I got into a fight before school started in the parking lot. And, he had my two older brothers before me coming through school. And one of my older brothers had a tough upbringing as well for his own reasons. And and my mom kind of went through the ringer with him as well. But the principal went through a lot with this individual. So my last name had some stank behind it, right? And this principal, worked out something with my mom and came to me, and this was this was a pilot program at the time, but it was called Missouri Options. You guys might be familiar with it now because it's been a long time. Maybe you're not. It's
No.
It was a program designed to offer an alternative to individuals like myself that are struggling in high school, whether it be behaviorally or educationally or a combination of both, and they still want to graduate, like they still want a chance at life. They would let them have an alternative schedule. So like 3 days, 3 hours a day at the VOTEC, which was a offsite location from the high school, where I could go and attend GED classes where I had one teacher that would teach all subjects, kind of like going back to elementary school with a small group. And I could take my GED test, and if I passed it, I could get my high school diploma. Like that was the deal. It was a sweet deal. And so I took it, of course, without knowing, because coming to school 5 days a week for 8 hours a day clearly wasn't going to happen with my reputation. I had displayed that I couldn't manage such a schedule. So this was offered. I was expelled from Washington High School's property. And the agreement was if I passed and got my high school diploma, I wasn't allowed to walk. I would get my diploma in the mail.
Yeah, like with the hat and gown and shit. Yeah.
So I did it, and man, I could talk to you for another hour. I won't about that time because.
But it's important, man. I'm glad you hit that. There's a lot of this shit starts at a young age, and I think it's a lot of trauma. I hear a lot of trauma in your story, a lot of self-medicating, a lot of anger, which is, I think a symptom of childhood trauma. And I think it's I really appreciate this, starting with this, because I've had the pleasure of knowing you now for 2 or 3 years, and I feel like I've known you my whole life, but I don't know this side of you. Like you're this fucking teddy bear motherfucker that I know and love.
Yeah.
And could call at any hour of the night if it was it could be a minor issue. It doesn't have to be a 911 emergency, and your ass will be there. And I mean that from the wholeheartedly.
That's a compliment, bro.
And I've seen a level of empathy you have, brother, with that is for people, and a real love for people of all walks. And I've seen you literally hold their hand as they enter treatment to help them change their life. So
thank you, man.
I think it's important to hear where how it started, because where it's gotten to is fucking beautiful. And I don't even think you've gotten into the real fucking hard shit.
Fuck no, I haven't touched it. I mean, that's what's crazy, man, is like, because during all of this, we're talking about these big landmarks, right? In my life, in one area, like in between all of this, I started using heroin, and I started injecting it with the needle quickly.
What age would you think you were doing it?
I was 17.
Intravenously?
17. Intravenously, yes.
I was looking at the expert.
100%. I don't have to think twice about it. I was 17
17.
years old. Yeah,
and
because
I thank God it wasn't heroin for me.
Yeah, man.
Jacob, you've shared your story. It was heroin was your...
Yeah.
You said a drug of choice, isn't a word. It's an NA thing.
How would I say it?
No, whatever. Maybe, I know, I like to put words in people's mouth. I thank God every day that it wasn't pain pills or heroin for me, because I don't think I'd be here. It was alcohol and blow, but I've heard from being on this side of everything, as soon as that needle hits the vein, that's all she fucking wrote.
Yeah, man.
To an addiction. Is that accurate? I mean,
it's definitely that's when you're doing like heroin IV user as well. So once you use that, it's almost a game over.
Sure.
Like for me,
bro.
I think I grew up, 7 miles away. I think that you touched on too, like that small town, like the people we're hanging out with in a small town are people that you should not be.
Yeah.
The older crowd, the people that are about 12 years old, 20-year-olds.
Right.
Yeah, bro. Like-minded people. Yeah.
Oh, so 17, you start shooting heroin.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I remember during that Missouri Options program, I would show up there with needles in my car. I would go out on lunch break and get high.
Yeah.
Bro, and we're talking like I'm 17 years old. This is, in my eyes, before it was fucking cool. There wasn't the treatment options there are today. This is not that long ago. I'm 30, I'll be 33 this year. So this is what, 17
it's important
years
to touch
ago.
on that because you mentioned it early as we started that you got 9 years clean.
Almost.
So you got, you know,
Yeah. I got your back, Nathaniel. Don't worry.
Yeah,
So-
I appreciate you.
so it's just, I went to rehab when I was 30. So you, from 17 till, when did you check in? Or when did you?
I got clean when I was 23 and a half to the day.
I mean, that to me, that's young. Like that is, it is, which to get to that point at 23, yes, it's a blessing, but fuck, it breaks my heart for the shit that you endured from 12 or even younger to get to become that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man. Listen, we're talking in that 6-year time span. I overdosed a half a dozen times. I did every drug. Literally, there's a half a dozen drugs maybe that I haven't done.
Shit they've invented since you've been clean, right?
Right.
Fucking animal tranquilizer and stuff.
I've done everything, man. And here's what's crazy, full circle moment. We'll talk way more about the in-between tonight, but I own a house a half a mile away from the first gas station I overdosed at, in the parking lot. Someone called 911 inside the gas station, saved my fucking life. You know what I mean? It's just
fucking wild, man.
Yeah, man. It's absolutely crazy. Like, you're right. I did get clean young, and I talk about this with other people. I went through a lot in the years. I needed to get clean or I was going to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, heroin, and what you were hinting at or talking about was the lifespan, right? I think. And that was my experience, man. Like, I firmly believed I'd be dead at 25 and fully accepted that. And still today, as long as I've been clean, I still pinch myself. I'm 32. Although that's very young, I can acknowledge that. It's fucking
You're just trying to
old
fucking chirp
in
me
my
for
mind.
being old, motherfucker.
No, dude. No, not at all.
41.
Yeah, man.
Going on about 70.
Yeah. So man, 6 years, 9 treatment centers,
9 treatments.
homelessness, overdoses. I mean, you name it, man. Everything that you hear people talk about, I've experienced short of a prison sentence, and I was damn lucky not to have that.
Sure. So what was 9 treatment centers? I think I remember you telling me you went. Yeah, I don't want to name any treatment centers, but I was talking about the one that was like the work camp. I dropped my buddy off, and they had motherfuckers chopping wood.
Yeah, bro. Oh yeah, Listen, I've been to a Scientology rehab. I've been to fucking
they like worship
rehab.
Tom Cruise.
Yes, bro. Yes, yeah. We could have a whole nother podcast on my rehab
shit.
life,
I'd love
dude.
to hear that fucking.
I
weird
went to
shit.
the danger zone
Listen,
right there.
I broke out of a
I went to
rehab.
was a Scientology treatment center.
Really?
Okay.
I mean, aren't they
worse.
expensive as fuck?
I get insurance.
All right. Well, yeah, I know John Travolta is a big Scientologist,
You
right?
read a lot of L. Ron Hubbard books.
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard. We used to call him Hair Ron Chubbard.
I just watch Stacey
when you walk in the front door, they got L. Ron Hubbard up here, and they got a picture of Jesus below him.
That's fucking bullshit. That pisses me off.
Trust me, dude.
You're firing me up. I'm a Jesus guy.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll probably talk about that. I am too.
Let's
today.
get to it.
But
yeah,
man,
baby.
dude. Like, it's some psychological warfare.
That's wild. So you went.
Like that.
I mean, 9 treatment centers, including a fucking cult. Maybe a couple cult treatment centers in there. And what made it stick? What finally was the fucking deal that made
it's hard to understand that without the rest. I mean, we seriously could talk for 10 hours. What made it stick was my ass was totally beaten off my bottom. Like when I got clean, man, April 7th of 2016 is my clean date. I was prayed into these rooms. I don't know how I survived the last 6 months that I used. The last 6 months that I used was the worst time of my life. I ate out of trash cans with other homeless individuals. I remember sitting at an enclosed bus stop in the winter with my son's mother watching a person that suffers from schizophrenia and homelessness themselves talk to themselves, and that was my fucking entertainment. Like, we're talking about the animalistic lifestyle had beaten me down to a point where I had nowhere else to go, nowhere else to look but up. It was absolutely atrocious. And so what made it stick, man? It's hard. It's not a singular answer. It's by the grace of God. It's off the wings of other people's prayers. I don't mean to sound like any type of way, but it's real, so true, man. And I know this from my time in recovery and having done the work that I've done. God was doing for me what I could never do for myself. And there were so many moments that I can look back on just in that 6 months, excusing the rest of my story, and say, if one of those things was different slightly, I'm not here today. It's absolutely incredible. For example, very quickly, in December of 2015, I had my son in November of 2015. In December, which it's so crazy how to even get into this, but he was born with a life-altering medical condition.
He's one of the bravest human beings I've ever met in my life. It's not fucking privilege.
Thank you. I can't say directly related to the use of drugs, but I can pretty well make a good judgment, right? Or make an educated guess, if you will, that it is or was. But in December of 2015, so 1 month after he was born, we were kicked out of the Ronald McDonald House because I got caught smoking crack in the fucking building. And I wasn't walking across the parking lot to see my son who was fighting for his life in the NICU. Like, that's where I was at, right? Because I was totally consumed. I live to use and use to live, by definition. And
tell me it's not a disease.
Dude, it's so to talk about the prayers, man, like the reason I say that is because from December of 15 to April of 16, I don't recall a whole lot, but I didn't do too much other than a lot of drugs. So in December or maybe January, they had taken custody of my son. And
he was born in December?
He was born in November 14th. Yeah. So
November 14th.
Yeah. So we were actively using every day of her pregnancy all the way up. And, every day we got high. I remember when she first got pregnant, we were in sober living in South Florida. That's where I met her. She was from Ohio. I was from St. Louis. We met in South Florida. She was absolutely beautiful. I was blown away. Like, I was, going to marry this girl, whatever. But yeah, so we relapsed together. We got pregnant first or second time we had sex and relapsed together very quickly, got kicked out of the halfway house, on and on and on. But I remember
I real quick, jump in? The feminist friends I have are going to fucking chirp you because...
For what?
She got pregnant, motherfucker.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, listen, when she called me, I was a waitress, or I was a food runner.
You were a waitress. Were you?
Hey, listen.
Hooters?
Whatever.
Yeah, okay. There you go, baby.
I was a food runner at a barbecue joint, and she called me, and listen, we just met a couple weeks prior and had sex and whatever. She called me and she said,
nice
hey,
first kiss.
I'm pregnant. And I said, not with me. And I hung up the phone. So
that's nice.
She was pregnant, Chris. I'm sorry. What do you want me to say? This wasn't a two-way street back then. So
I'm chirping you.
I know.
Hey, real quick. I do. This is important to me to say, and I was going to say it as you kind of wrapped up the story. I really am grateful for your vulnerability. It takes a lot of fucking courage to come out here knowing that this is going out to whoever wants to listen to it. And your vulnerability and your courage to be honest is going to be life-saving for people out there that think there's no fucking hope. And that's why we're doing this podcast. But it's stories like yours that are raw and full of fucking courage and honesty that are so important. So I'll say it again, but I'm grateful. I admire you so much, and you're really fucking brave, being able to talk about this stuff. This is hard shit. And it's so important. So thanks for taking the risk, my friend. And I've, like I said, had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know your son, and he's 9, right?
Yeah, man.
And he's maybe one of the bravest human beings. And I started to wonder, see where he gets that from.
Thank you. He's my miracle, bro.
And I remember when we one of our first or second conversations, you found out about me and my wife's experience being foster parents, and it hit you, and you had just were getting to the point that you were in active addiction. So did the state intervene? Is that what happened early on in his life?
Yeah. So what's crazy, man, is like we used every day that we were pregnant, and that wasn't the intention, right? It was all.
I'm gonna put my pussy hat on and do a mark.
Yeah,
kidding.
It wasn't the intention, man. We relapsed together when she was 6 weeks pregnant. Used every day, right? And he should have been taken at birth, but he wasn't, because he had to go right to surgery when he was born. And he had an 8-hour surgery, which is where he was diagnosed with his health condition. And he was immediately put on pain medication after his surgery. And we're talking, he's 9 hours old at this time. So there, of course, he was going to be dirty for opiates, as so was mother. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was one of those things where we flew under the radar, Chris. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, that's why there's that period from November to late December or early January when custody was taken, because it was so clear and obvious. He should have been taken at birth, but he wasn't. But unfortunately, what that allowed me to do was cause more fucking harm, you know? And that's, again, hindsight being 2020. At the time, of course, that was what I wanted to happen. I wanted to be this dad, you know, and in a perfect world, I was so crippled by my drug addiction, but I still wanted to be a good person. But again, looking back, he should have been taken day one, but he wasn't because of that. So yes, I was in a Lowe's parking lot.
God, it takes some fucking balls to say that, man.
Dude,
and to be that
one of
mindful.
The biggest spiritual awakenings I had in this process is directly related to getting honest about my son and about being a father. And in those couple months, like, I didn't lose him. I gave him away, man. Like, I gave him away. I can't even say to the highest bidder. I was such a piece of shit. And I don't use that term lightly. I'm not into negative self-talk. It's the fucking truth, you know? Like, that's why I say he should have been taken. So DFS, this is God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, right? DFS
Amen.
took him. I was in the fucking Lowe's parking lot with a prostitute and my son's mother at the time. Not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. We were trying to hit a lick, man, for the gift cards. Okay, that's not a played out deal. Jacob Miller's laughing. He knows exactly what I'm talking about.
60% sometimes.
Hey, listen, my ass was smart. You know how the numbers on your driver's license are red? I shouldn't give this away. I'm gonna give it away.
Tell it.
So listen, when you run out of returns at all these different places, you can't get returns, and then you can't get with other people to get returns because they've all done the same shit. So my smart ass one time got a red fine point Sharpie, and I changed the 3 on my driver's license number to an 8, and I went back and got all return. I got another round of returns at every store. But anyways,
I did that in high school just to get fucking liquor from the liquor store. I wasn't fucking boosting Walmarts.
Yeah, man. Creativity at its finest.
That's fucking
so I'm sitting in this parking lot.
Ingenuity is incredible, man.
Yeah, listen, I saved addicts' lives that day that I figured this out because we were able to get high. That is absolutely an oxymoron, okay?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm sitting in this Lowe's parking lot in this situation trying to hit a lick, and the phone rings. We miss the fucking call, and we get the voicemail, and it's DFS saying, you know, Mr. Carpenter and Mrs. So-and-so, we're taking custody of your son. We weren't allowed to go back to the NICU. So my son was in the NICU for 7 months. He was 2 months old at this time, and they were taking custody, and we weren't allowed to go up there. And I would love to tell you that hit me in the pit of my stomach and I changed, but it didn't. You know what I mean? I quickly moved on from that to, okay, what's next? You know, like, now I'm bothered that my son's mother even played the damn voicemail because I'm trying to do something, right? So, yeah, I don't even know where I was going when we started talking about this, but That's just a small reflection. But we were talking about God doing for me. Go ahead.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
So this was in January, and then you had said your clean date is in April.
Yeah.
Of
yeah,
that
man.
year.
So DFS.
So I mean,
stepped
you were
in.
fucking like getting ready to just crash, rock bottom.
Yeah.
You're there. You're
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I was a suicidal mission. Like nothing mattered. That was more probably of an excuse to just continue living like I was living, because pour me another drink, right? Like I already suck. And now the only thing I was hanging on to was my son, and he's gone. Again, hindsight's 2020. He should have been gone. It was better for him. But the little bit of fire I did have, we talk about in the rooms how we fan the flame, right? As sponsors, it's our job to fan the flame of desire for somebody new to get this way of life.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a small flame, okay? And that small flame allowed me to hang on. And the person on the other end of the line, I had been, like I said, 9 total. So I had been to that point in my life, 8 treatment centers, 8 different stays, 8 chances at recovery, whatever you want to call it. And the DFS stepped in and they said that they were going to get me some help, essentially. And I remember a lot of this is a blur, but one thing I do remember is the phone that ringing one day, and it was Protective Services on the other line, and they said, we got some good news for you. Good news and bad news. Good news is we have you a bed at a place to go, because I didn't have insurance or money or anything.
By this time,
my family
had nothing.
had been
you got
robbed.
fucking Walmart gift cards.
Yes. I'd
You
gotten
sold
rid of
those.
my mom's wedding ring, my grandmother's I mean, everything, right? The story, the addict changes, but the story stays the same. So I had done all that stuff. I had no resources available. But they said, good news and bad news, we have you a bed to go somewhere. The bad news is it's not until April. And I remember in that moment thinking to myself, and I actually said,
I can imagine hearing that.
Dude, I said out loud to her, bro, I said, give that to somebody else. I'm not going to live that long. Right?
Yeah.
Because I thoroughly believed it, man. Like the quality of my life. That's why I talk about the last 6 months, because it was so bad. And of course, that's not what took place, right? She didn't give it away. I hung on, and I don't remember a whole lot about January to April, but I do remember my last shot, and I remember my ride to treatment. My grandmother had picked me up and drove me. I had to be in South City at 7:00 in the fucking morning. I had like crumbs to use the day before, and I had a big habit, right, to maintain.
Boy, yeah.
So I didn't go to bed feeling well. I went to bed on the verge of being sick, and it was a long night, man. It was a long fucking night. It was painful. It was hard. I was hanging on to have a chance, right? They stepped in. They got me this bed. I didn't ask a lot of questions. What I knew was I was going to have a warm place to go, and I was going to have a chance to be a dad if I could get this right. And that's one thing I will say about myself in a positive light, even through my addiction, is I always kept coming back, always kept trying. And I remember saying when I was using, I didn't know how to get out, but I always thought, like, I'm going to try until I die, because what's the alternative? The alternative is to totally give up and die. And it was like, I wasn't willing to do that. You know what I mean? So anyways, fast forward to the day that I'm going to treatment, man, like my grandma takes me, and we get there, and this sweet old lady is trying to check me in, and she's like, okay, you're going to have to sit in the lobby. And I'm full blown. This is before fentanyl. So, I felt like I had a PhD in as far as it relates to the science of using opiates. I knew when I was going to be sick. I knew what medication I needed to get well. I knew how much I could get by for how long for, on and on and on. At this point, I was full blown, man. I was ready for, MAT, as they call it now. I was ready for some kind of intervention.
Medically
and I had to
assisted
sit
treatment.
in this, medically assisted treatment. I had to sit in this cold ass lobby with my grandmother, and I didn't have a phone. She was my ride. Here I am. I've made it to April from January, like we've highlighted. I can't believe I'm here, and I'm grateful to be here. But that gratitude was quickly overrun by the disease of addiction when they said, it was going to be a couple hours. So I thought, man, my first idea, right, was like, good, grandma, you can take me to the set. I need to get well, right? And that's another thing we didn't talk about. I used to have my grandmother take me to the north side. I mean, I put her through the wildest shit you can imagine. But so in my mind, I'm in my reality, I was going to tell my grandma, which I attempted to do so, take me to get well. We'll come back. I'll go into treatment. Everybody will go on their merry way. And she was going to do it. And the lady was like, listen, if you walk out of here, we're giving your bed away. There is no alternative. You stay in this lobby until we can get you checked in, or you leave. And again, we're talking about God doing for me what I could never do for myself. Left to my own devices, absolutely I would have walked out of there. And my grandmother got up and left. There goes my ride. There goes my money. Okay. There goes my cell phone. All of it out the door. She did for me what I could never do for myself. I never would have looked at her and said, it's time for you to go. I need to man up.
Real quick, Nathaniel, I want to explain for, Jeff, who's not an addict.
Yeah.
Listeners that aren't addicts. Why were you explain why you were so scared in the lobby and why you wanted to run to North City to, like, what you said was get high.
Yeah.
Because if you sat in that lobby, it would not be coming down, right?
Yeah. So if you've never experienced a withdrawal from opiates, I don't encourage you to do so. And the reason I say that is because it was some of the most excruciating pain I felt in my life. And we're talking about being jumped, getting hit by a car, all the things that we've touched on or maybe not touched on in the story. It's absolutely the fucking worst. Yeah, it's hell on earth, man. So as a heroin addict, I can only speak for myself, but I think I have a general consensus when I talk to other addicts is I am deathly afraid of withdrawals, especially knowing what's coming, right? So when you have clammy skin and you're constantly dry heaving, like you've passed being able to throw up and you're just dry heaving and you're defecating on yourself and you're sweating and then you're cold and then you're sweating, and the anxiety, the intangible parts of withdrawal was the hardest for me. The onset of gloom and doom, the rapid heart rate. I mean, it's just like
fucking devil, man.
Dude, it's the worst.
Like stay inside,
and so
cut off your leg.
Percocet. Yeah, exactly. You'll do anything, man. Like you just said, Jacob, I'll cut my fucking leg off to get a 5 milligram Percocet. You know what I mean? A 5 milligram Vicodin.
It's so important to talk about this real quick as we progress with your story, because that just illustrates the fucking power of what was heroin back then.
Yeah, man.
Which doesn't even fucking hold a candle to what's on the street today. Am I right about that? When it comes to like potency and dependency, and isn't it?
It's almost a whole different drug.
Yeah, it really is.
But it's the same, the withdrawal and the power of it, like it hijacks your soul.
Yeah, man.
To where if you don't have it, this is what's fucking happening to you.
Yeah, Chris, listen. When I say there was absolutely nothing I wouldn't do to get one more, I mean it. Like, you think of it and put it in front of me. If the reward was a few dollars to get off sick or a shot of dope, 100% I'm doing it. 100%. And let your mind wander, man. Like anything.
No. I get it, man.
So it's and that's all to avoid. I'd love to say that was to get high and feel good. That's years before, right? That was when it's fun. We're to a point now where it's just to get to a baseline. You see what I'm saying?
That's what the word was coming to my was baseline.
Absolutely.
And the baseline is not fucking hell on earth where you suck a cock to get a fix.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Put one of those fucking thumpers in front of me, dude. And I'm telling you, you might think,
I got a thump. I mean,
yeah.
Do I have a thumper?
Listen, I'll take it all the way to the base, brother, for $20.
You're clean, baby.
And listen, that's fucking real, man. It is
I get it,
important
man.
to say this shit out loud because there's people out there that aren't going to say this or that are ashamed by having these thoughts. Man, I would have fucking done it, and I did it, right? So to sit in that cold lobby for when she said a while, I don't know how long a while is, but honey, I ain't got it. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I've been traveled 50 miles in my grandmother's car, listening to 60s country, okay, with this anxiety, with this skin crawling, with this throwing up on myself and defecating. I mean, dude, I couldn't take another couple hours. So her walking out of there saved my life. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. Fast forward a little bit, I was checked into treatment.
You said earlier that there was this flame.
Yeah.
That may have gotten really small, but it never went out. I mean, I try not to get all Christian super freak on this fucking show, and I'm not a Christian super freak, but I am a fucking Jesus guy, and I try to fail every day, but he saved my fucking life, and I'm not afraid to fucking say it. And that fucking flame, and I get passionate, so now I'm using the F word too much. Sorry, Mom. That's what God is that light not getting extinguished no matter what. And God, what a fucking story of the darkness not fucking winning, man. And I love how you put it, that God does what we can't do for ourselves. Amen, man. And
dude, it's so hard to work in treatment, Chris, because it's so frustrating, right? As this thing comes full circle, I've had all these moments of people I love that can't get right, and I want to shake them. You know, I'll never forget my first sponsor telling me, well, now you know how your family felt, right? Because that's all they want, all they fucking want is for you to stop killing yourself and get clean. And guess what? Until X, Y, and Z happens, you're not going to, which was my story too. So it's absolutely crazy to speak to the power of the disease, but then, like you said, the God that is greater, and the flame of desire that, if there at all, can be flamed. And I'll even go on to say, anybody, no matter who it is, their attempt to get well, their attempt to get better, meaning they're showing up to treatment, they're showing up to the hospital, whatever, is that exactly an attempt to get better. Now, it might look different, and this is where it becomes frustrating when you get into the logistics of dealing with addicts. Meeting them where they're at is fucking hard by definition. Amen. But you can't take light away from the fact that it's an attempt to get better, because I did it many times. And the flame wasn't big. It was just like, man, this, before I get a life sentence, right, it didn't go out. And before I get a life sentence or end up completely dead, you know, I need to try to get somewhere to do something different than what I'm doing.
This shit gives me fucking goosebumps.
It's fucking wild, man.
A fucking miracle, and just a fucking baller, bro.
Yeah,
I mean it. So how long were you in then at this final stop, this final treatment center?
I was there 28 days, and I was only supposed to be there for detox. Okay, so on my 4th or 5th day, I was getting ready to leave. My mind frame was just to get better and go back out and try this thing again, right? Which was the problem at every other stop.
Do it Nathaniel's way.
Yeah, exactly. Every way but someone else's way. I'm going to do it my way. So again, we talk about God in the last 6 months because I owe it all to God. There's no other way to explain this, because I couldn't make this shit up. From the grandma leaving, from the lady saying what she said, from the DFS worker on the phone saying good news and bad news, everything in between. The fact that I made it to April 7th, the fact that I was there, all of that, God. And it doesn't stop there. So I thought I was there for detox. I was the day before I was supposed to leave or something, and I had asked to use the phone. This little nurse that was giving me so much shit, man, for being an asshole, for being who I was. I asked to use the phone, and, you know, I was trying to call my ride to set up my ride to leave out of there and go back to ripping and tearing. And she was like, something like, you know, presented the idea of staying for 21 days. And I'm like, you know, I don't have any money. I don't have any way to do that. Thanks, but no thanks, basically. And she said, well, this is, again, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. She took the reins from me, if you will. She said, well, I've already called your ride. So her first attempt was getting me to agree, right? I didn't agree. So then she took it a step further and had already taken the step for me and called my grandma and told her that that I was able to stay 21 days. It was going to be paid for, and they would get me on the Vivitrol shot when I left. So my grandma was hands up, right? Thank God. Yeah. Keep his ass there. And I'm just now getting the news, and I'm like, you're fucking with the wrong person saying that shit. Because they could, you know, you guys know this that are addicts on this call. Like, my mind was, I had a fixed idea, right? I was leaving there. I had gotten through the couple days. I had had my medicine. I had some ice creams. Okay. I was wearing my nice blue suit, my jumpsuit and detox. I was feeling, playing
Clean
chess.
underwear.
We're playing spades, man. I'm ripping them up, and I'm living, but it's time to go. I've graduated 5 days. I'm graduating.
Right. You're
I'm
a
going
fucking
back.
expert now.
I'm going back out here to start a business, to be a dad, to all these things.
Right.
And this little nurse interjected.
God bless
right?
this woman.
God showed up in my life and did for me what I could never do for myself. And by what I mean is, I would have never signed up or even asked to stay that long and be on the Vivitrol shot. This was done for me. And so, man, that's where it started. She said,
explain Vivitrol real quick to people.
Yeah, so Vivitrol is an alternative MAT medication. So you have your couple staples like Suboxone, Subutex. Back then, those were the two main ones. There are other ones now, but essentially those are short-lived medications that you take daily or multiple times a day. That, I'm not a fucking scientist, but they deal with the receptors in your brain. They block the receptors in your brain, the pleasure center of your brain, so that essentially you can't get high on opiates, right? So it basically renders opiates meaningless, or you don't feel them. So Vivitrol was actually, yes, Vivitrol was a shot in the ass, and it was once a month. And so the big difference between that and like Subutex or Suboxone or these other medications. And
I was on naltrexone.
Yeah, naltrexone is the
pill.
pill version of the Vivitrol, right? So the biggest difference about this was it couldn't be manipulated, and it had no street value. So Suboxone you could sell to other addicts on the street. You could take enough to get high. So it had this, obviously taken as prescribed, like Oxycontin or every fucking other thing on the planet, had an actual use. If used appropriately, it probably was a good medication. But just like everything as an addict, we manipulate, we fix, manage, and control. Vivitrol, you couldn't do that. It had no effects. It didn't get you high. There was no euphoria. It did the main job, which was block those receptors.
Is Vivitrol a narcotic?
No.
Suboxone is.
The easiest way to look at like all three of those medications, like from like heroin, the painkillers,
right?
Basically, they are like, they hit your opioid receptors at 100%. Full on hit it. Suboxone mixed with naltrexone, because it's buprenorphine and naltrexone mixed together for Suboxone, it hits your receptors at 50%. So it's still an opioid. You get if you have no tolerance, you'll get high. Street value, it's a narcotic medication. It just has a ceiling of 50%.
Got it.
Hits your receptors. We're like, Vivitrol is just naltrexone. So all it is the blocker part of that. So there's no opioid, there's no mind altering.
So if you take it in treatment once a month, so after you take the shot, you kind of you committed to, you're not unable to get high for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Or naltrexone, you can just stop taking the pill and go get high.
Exactly. You can manipulate it. Yeah, you can stop taking the pill. If it's Suboxone, you can stop taking it and sell it. You can manipulate it. You can't do that with Vivitrol. And
so how long were you on Vivitrol?
Yeah, so just a couple months, because I found a 12-step program and a sponsor and all that other stuff. So
well, that's important. So
yeah. Well, you keep cutting me off, Chris.
Fine, that's what I do, man. I'm a fucking jackass.
I'm just playing.
I know. But you started it in treatment, the first shot, and then you did it for a couple months, committed to it as part of an outpatient program.
Yeah. So listen, I wasn't even there yet, right? Like I didn't even have.
Maybe if I let you talk, not cut you off, if I could get to your story.
I was trying to be nice about it.
I'm just trying to go day one of residential here, Chris.
And listen, forgive me. I'm a long-winded individual. I try to be. There's still so much we haven't talked about, but listen, doesn't matter.
We're gonna flow. I mean, we're going. We got all night.
So this nurse, to go back just a little bit, this nurse did that, right? I was unhinged, to say the least. And I was going to meet her with that same rebellion I did these other
football
individuals that we touched on. Yes, I was going to, I'm going to show you, lady. I will sit in my room or I will watch TV for the next 21 days and I will beat your drug rehabilitation program. So again, she's one step ahead of me. Actually, no, you won't. We have the remote at the nurse's station. You can't engage in the TV. You can either go to group or you can go sit in your room and watch paint dry and you're not allowed to come out. Those are my options. So now I'm feeling my ego's beaten up a little bit. I'm feeling like, well, I'm going to show her. I'm going to go to groups and prove why it ain't going to work. Okay. So I have something to do for 8 hours. But I'm going to take that option. And I did, man. And that's where That's where multiple 12-step programs were brought in. H&I saved my life. People from the community that do selfless service to bring in meetings to institutions where people can't get out is so fucking important because it saved my life. I was introduced in that 21 days. There was a formal plan put in place for me to get on Vivitrol, and a provider, the place I went, that was going to provide it for as long as I needed it, up to a year. It was going to attack one of the main things I needed, which was the inability to get high, right? Because as long as I had the ability to get high, at that point in my life, it didn't matter how much support I had and how much I was going to get high, And again, at that point in my life, so this was another God moment. So I did the 21 days, man. After detox, I was introduced to a 12-step fellowship. I met a guy in there, and I really, really connected with them. And this was a problem for me at the treatment centers prior. It wasn't my first time hearing of the self-help groups. It was the first time I listened. So I met a guy that I really identified with that was sharing about me. And for the first time in any of those treatment stays, man, I remember going from, in my mind, like, fuck this guy's got a girlfriend, got a cell phone in his pocket, all the material shit, right? He doesn't understand me. He doesn't know what I've been through. I went from that to this guy's sharing my story, right? And some guards started to come down, and the message started to penetrate my spirit just a little bit. And we're talking about that flame, right? To fan that flame just a little bit. And I told him, I said, hey man, I was used to getting dope dealers' numbers, right? So this was going to be new for me. But I was like, can I have your number? And he was so excited, man. He was like, absolutely. Gave me his number. And I said, I'll never forget this. I said, I'm going to call you when I get out of treatment. He said, do yourself a favor and call me before you get out of treatment. This blew my fucking mind. I thought this guy was gay. Okay. Now I talk about trauma and triggers. Now I thought, okay, this guy who was sharing all this good stuff now wants
for ulterior motives.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now what do you want from me? I'm living my life out of a fucking hefty bag. Okay. Why would I call you from treatment? That's where my mind was. You know what I'm saying? That's how skewed my reality was.
It's because your self-worth was non-existent, man.
None, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would I?
But people saw you, bro.
Yeah, man. And I took that suggestion. That's the first suggestion I took, man. And I remember going back to that little nurse at the nurse's station a couple of days from graduation. And I was like, hey, can I use the phone? And I say this laughing because use the phone was an abused term in treatment. No
Sure.
pun intended, Jacob, right? I was trying to use the phone for an honest attempt at calling help, and she regrettably let me use the phone. And I called this fucking guy. And I was like, hey, man, a couple of weeks ago, you came into this treatment center. I met you. I got your number. You told me to call you, and I'm calling you. And this guy was so excited. And here comes those feelings of like, this guy's gay, right? I'm like, why is he
Somebody
so excited
actually cares
to talk
about you? So they
right. So
man,
listen, he pulled
you think
up.
pretty fucking highly of that
dude.
chiseled body of yours.
Yeah, right. I'm a 10. Hey, listen, I'm a fucking 10.
Right, ulterior motives. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what does he want? So I said, listen, man, I graduate, blah, blah, blah. And a couple of days from now, he said, great, I'll be up there to pick you up. I'm like, oh my God, this is so weird. So this guy shows up, picks me up. I throw my hefty bag in his fucking trunk. He's like, we're in the South City. He's like, pop the trunk. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Like this is going sideways. Pops the trunk, nice car, young guy. I'm like, this is just not adding up. Nobody's ever done this. So I put my bag in there, and he drives me to a 12-step meeting, man. And this is the first time
fucking
in my
angel,
life,
bro.
Angel, absolutely. I walked out of a treatment center and directly into a 12-step meeting, and I shared that shit like my ass is on fire when I'm in a meeting, because you asked the question earlier, what did it for me or what made this it? That is it, man. All of those God moments that took place, and then that fucking angel showing up for no reason other than to help somebody else, that give away what was so freely given to him and carry my ass to a 12-step meeting, man, for nothing. Okay. And that fucking was the beginning. And that's where I heard get a sponsor, go to meetings, work steps, do service work. And that was the beginning of it all, man.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fucking beautiful. Yeah. I heard you earlier on how important it is to have outside meetings come into treatment centers. And that's been that's been something that Jacob and Eric is from the day one with the alumni program and open to our clients that at Illinois Recovery Center, there's a meeting every night, right?
Yeah.
For outside
Listen,
meetings.
Jacob, I respect Jacob a lot in this area specifically because Jacob is cut from the same fucking cloth. Like, I know this about Jacob, right? And I mean, this is your podcast. I don't want to share your story, but like, we are very similar in that parts of our story. And so I know Jacob feels that way about
Right,
H&I and about self-help meetings and dude, me too. Like I care more about what are we doing at our treatment center in that regard than I do what does our fucking therapy cycle look like? Like, miss me with that. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying it isn't helpful. 100% it is.
Don't throw shade at therapists.
Dude, hey, you asked
I'm
me to
fucking with
share. You asked me to share.
That's right, baby. That's right. Hey,
So-
let me throw it back at you.
Yeah.
All that childhood trauma. Are you seeing a therapist now? And I know the answer.
Yeah.
The best in the business.
Yeah. Best therapist on earth. Yeah.
That's right. That's my dog, Chazzy.
Yeah, man. I believe in therapy 100%.
It's a tool, right? That's important. Now, go ahead.
So one thing, because speaking of like the treatment,
Go ahead, clinician.
well, me and Nathaniel went through the same treatment program.
Okay.
That's one thing. You know,
Explain H&I.
so H&I, so that's what saved my life in treatment. Same.
Nobody that's listening knows what it means.
So H&I is hospitals and institutions. It's a subcommittee of Narcotics Anonymous. AA has one as well. Celebrate Recovery has one.
Okay.
Where they take meetings. So usually it's like a speaker meeting, maybe a little book study. It's only a couple guys or a couple gals that go into a treatment center or jail, prison, and they host an hour meeting for like the clients. So because they can't leave and go out to meetings, so they just bring it in.
Right.
It's almost like marketing for the program in the sense of just they go there and they share some hope of like their own, tell their story.
But it's life-saving shit. Yeah.
And
They're carrying a life-saving message into a place where the people that are there cannot get to it. That's the whole
Right.
purpose.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to kind of gas up, like Nathaniel was one of those H&I people for me. So I got clean November 2016. So 6 months after Nathaniel did. And
Yeah, man, I was 6 months clean, and my sponsor was speaking at the treatment center he was in, and we carried an NA a 12-step meeting into that treatment center.
Why'd you stop yourself? Why'd you go in a 12-step? Why'd you do that?
Because, bro, we got traditions, man. I'm trying to respect them. You know,
Fuck, man.
anonymity.
it's your personal
It
anonymity,
sounds like
so
you're
it's
in a
okay.
biker gang or
I
something.
was just going to say he's going to start flashing colors.
Listen, you want what I have, do what I do. You know, I mean, what
There
can I
we go,
say?
baby.
What can I say? No, I'm joking.
This is wild. So you're this guy picks you up. You're going to you're working as we always trip. You say work your steps, bro. Work your
man.
steps. So
So I
start
jumped
working
right
your
in.
steps. Let's get back to the miracle that is your little boy. When he's in foster care.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So, man, there's so many things in that early stage. So I had to go to court, fresh, quick out of treatment, and I had to listen for what felt like hours, plural, to doctors, nurses that all witnessed that 2-month time where I was in the NICU and in the Ronald McDonald House and all this stuff, right? They came in so fucking prepared, man. And for hours, I had to sit there and listen to what I did, testimony of what they witnessed. And there were things like, me in the NICU with my shirt off, wrapped around my head, making animal noises. I mean, I don't remember this stuff, man. You're talking about really sick kids and families. And it just, there was a time where I was trying to steal my son's pain medication. There were time I was asking nurses I was panhandling from the nurses at the NICU. I mean, they had all this documented stuff.
You were so sick, man.
Oh man, it was so painful to sit through that. I remember thinking to myself, okay, guys, you proved your point. I'm not a fit father, right? Like, you guys should have custody of my son. You can have him. I'm not here to stop it. Like, can I go?
You win. Fuck.
I couldn't.
Closed.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. So yes, he was in foster care. And this was my chance, right? Like, I went all in without knowing how to be all in on anything. And I did all the things that they asked, man, but I showed up, man. I had FST meetings. I had drug tests.
Family support team.
Yep. Family support team. I had to be up at the Children's Protective Services office, once a week. I got to see my son, in this little room with a 2-way mirror with my son's mom, and spend an hour with them and he's hooked up to pumps and all kinds of stuff with his medical. I mean, it was just wild, man. And this was my son, right? Like, this was all I ever wanted to be, other than a pro football player, was a dad. And here I had this chance, and I felt so lost and so behind the mark. You know what I mean? But I showed up. That's the important thing. I showed up to all of those meetings. I passed all the drug tests.
Took a fucking beating too, man.
Dude,
You were
took a beating. Yeah. And here's what's great about being
sober.
Here's what's good about
shit.
being beaten down to where you have nothing, because when I was going to meetings early on, I literally had nowhere to be. I had no job, no car, nothing. So me and my son's mom, we would hang out at this specific place that carries meetings, multiple times a week. This little house, Jacob knows where I'm talking about. They would have nooners. We call them nooners. They'd have a noon meeting, and then they'd have a
different connotation. Sober, yeah.
We'd have a 7 p.m. meeting, right?
So I'd have a nooner with Ashley tomorrow after lunch. But sorry,
me and my son's mom, man, we would hang out. Excuse me. We would hang out. We'd hang out at these meeting places from noon, and we'd attend the meeting, and then we'd just hang out. We'd go get coffee with people, or just hang out at this place until 7. Like, and I was being exposed, like I had nowhere else to go, and I'm grateful, because if I had resources in another place, and don't miss the fact about that we talked about Vivitrol. So here it is, man. I got a medication inside of me that's keeping me from using, right? I have nowhere to fucking go. No phone, no resources. My son's in foster care. I have no drug problem now because I'm 30 so days clean. And I hate to tell you, when you get out of treatment, any newcomer that's listening to this or gonna listen to this, you ain't got a drug problem anymore. You got a you problem. So the drug problem has been dealt with, and I'm sitting there with a me problem, and it worked out in my favor, man.
But
I had
completely fucking humbled, broken down to the bare fucking basics.
Dude. And I'm meeting all these people, and, I didn't like most of them. I didn't believe most of them. But the point is, I stayed where they told me to stay, right?
You listened.
And my life got better. And that's a short way of describing it. But, yeah, man, I checked all the boxes. The judge that told me, they were taking custody, and if he had something to do with it, I would never see my son again. He was right by saying that. Is the same judge. In January of 2018, they gave me full custody of my son, and I've raised him every day since. His mother,
I've seen.
I don't want to tell her story. We got clean together. She didn't stay clean. It's been a battle. She's had a year a couple times. She's about a year and a half now. We have a great relationship. We used to hate each other. We've went through everything together, me and her. Okay. And today we have a great working relationship. We parent the same child. We love the same child. Our intentions are good. Our communication is better, like all because of God, all because of recovery. And I don't, there's a lot to that, but 2018, I got custody of this boy. And it's been an absolute fucking roller coaster, man. For those that don't know, I just touch on it because I've talked about it. My son was diagnosed with short gut syndrome when he was born. They found an abnormality in doing an ultrasound when she was 7 months pregnant. I was in treatment at the time, trying to get clean for when he blessed us on earth. And my case manager pulled me in the office and said, "Hey, I don't know what she said. Your son's mom or whatever has left a message for you. We need to talk about this. There's an abnormality in your son's ultrasound." Okay. And I'm in treatment in South Florida at the time. So I'm panicking. We call her. She's like, "Listen, my grandma took me to the doctor. They saw this issue and while he's in the womb, but they said it's not going to be a big deal. He's going to have surgery when he's born. But they're going to go cut his stomach open and figure out what's going on, remove the issue, and he'll be okay." That's as much information as I had. So fast forward to him being born. He did, in fact, come out and go straight to surgery. But it was an 8-hour surgery. Okay. Instead of a hour surgery. And I'd love to say I sat there and watched the TV screen the whole time. In reality, I stole my grandma's car. I went and got high. I came back. I fell out at the hospital. I got my son's mom high. Then I made my way down to the waiting room to visit to sit there for the rest of the time while my crying family was experiencing it the whole time. Sad reality. But the doctor came out after surgery and diagnosed him with short gut. What it actually means is 80% of his intestines were necrotic. When they opened him up, it was much worse than they thought it was going to be. They thought they would just cut a piece of his intestine out, re-sew his intestine back together, and he would be fine. We're talking about a 5-pound premature baby, though. It was actually, he was left with 19 centimeters of his large intestine. All of his small intestine was removed. So I remember,
which is where you get your nutrients, right?
Yeah, it's where you get all your nutrients. So essentially, your large intestine is just a storage. It doesn't have much of a function. It still functions, but not much more than that. Your small intestine is the driver. But I remember him telling me he had a catheter placed in his heart where he was going to get intravenous nutrition daily for, at that time, the rest of his life. His prognosis, I think is the term, wasn't good. They didn't have a lot of answers or a lot of hope to give me. I remember him saying, we're not really sure what his life is going to look like, but you've got a team of people here, and we'll do everything we can. That's essentially what they said. And I'm full-blown heroin addiction, so I didn't grasp what he was saying until later. But yeah, man, my son has, he's been what it's called TPN, total perinatal nutrition. It's basically, the way I describe it in layman's terms is the nutrition that you and I get from consuming food and grow, he gets from an IV. So he had a permanent IV placed into his heart. And, he had to be, for the first couple years of his life, he was hooked up 24/7. So his mobility was limited to a 5-foot radius around a pole that would carry his IV bags. And so sterile procedure meant a lot. It meant life or death for him. Engaging in physical activity could result in a break of the line, which meant death, possibly death for him. If a bacteria got inside of his line, it was directly into his heart. So a line infection could lead to sepsis, which could lead to death very quickly. So, man, we could talk just on that for hours. There's been lots of surgeries, lots of hospital stays. I've lost lots of jobs because of the time I needed off to be in the hospital with my son. There's been lots of screaming nights, lots of sleepless nights. And I'm blessed, and I wouldn't change another bit of it. So to fast forward, man, to a situation where I had no hope and no answers and didn't know how this little boy was going to survive or thrive, God forbid, or anything. Today's a big day in his life. He's almost 9.5 years old. This morning, his line was removed.
Could not wait for you to share this.
His line was taken out this morning, which means he's gotten to a point where he can absorb enough nutrition orally through food like we do to sustain life. Okay, so the balance there was always, as long as he has to rely on medical nutrition to survive, he'll have to have this line in. It could be the rest of his life. We don't know. Luckily, it happened today at 9 years old, because all of his life we thought it was never coming, and it happened today. And so, man, I am absolutely
just this morning
blessed.
in surgery.
This morning today. He's in the other room right now, sleeping. Kissed him before he went to bed. He told me I was his best friend. I tell him that every day. He's my best friend. I love him more than anything. I'd do anything for him. He's the reason I grind. He's the reason I do the things that I do. He's the reason I work in the field that I work. I own a business on the side as well. I'm a hustler, man. And I don't mean that to be negative or to brag. I fight every day to make sure that kid has a life unlike I had in every way. And if we can just talk about resources for a second, that's
Please.
What I'm specifically meaning. I will, no pun intended, fucking die trying to create this guy a life. And man, I got it. What you see right here, man, is it's a small situation, my house, but it's a beautiful place. It's my home.
Amen.
It's a half a mile from where I overdosed. There's lots of God moments everywhere I look. I got a driveway to pull into. I got a car to put on that driveway. I'm fully self-supporting. The food in the refrigerator is mine. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Like, some people might listen to this and laugh or think it's silly, and I hope you do. I hope you find some kind of joy or identification or something in this, but I could go down the list. The walls that were painted by me are my fucking walls. The toilets I flush, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I ripped up all my carpet and I put in new vinyl floors in my house because I'm blessed enough to have the funds and the skills and the ability to do so. Like, dude, and that's just material stuff. All for him, man.
Nate,
So
it's
crazy.
You're fucking unbelievable, man. I wanted to, was going to bring this up because you are our director of business development at Illinois Recovery Center that was handpicked by Eric and Jakob when we started this dream to open a treatment center in Swansea, Illinois, that you live an hour away from. You do own a small business on the side where you're it's a landscaping business. Plug it. What's it called? Do you
Carpenter Cuts Lawn Care, baby? Let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
Plant some trees. You did some work over at the crib. But I mean, you're putting in. It's a joke if to say 40 hours at IRC and then
man,
every weekend sweating your dick off, working your ass off, running a crew. I just, it's so admirable and inspiring and hopeful for people that are listening, because we see these miracles often. It's probably the greatest privilege, and that I love being part of this industry, if you will, this life, because we see them every day. Where you're a walking miracle. You have been to the lowest of lows and endured things that I have seen. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have because of my wife, we became foster parents, and I've been on the other side of that, and seen, and it was one of the, thought it was hard on me to watch the, you said had a case, there was files and like see a bio parent get fucking obliterated. It rips a heart out. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine it. And for you to relive that and talk about it here, it's just fucking baller shit, man. I don't know how else to put it.
I appreciate
I'm
that.
really grateful, and your story's gonna help a lot of people. Since we've opened,
the literature says, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, do it.
I can't speak on it verbatim, but the literature talks about my pain, and if it's able to help one person, then it was all worth it. And I live by that shit, man. Like, this is easy for me. Like, you've said a lot of nice things, and I appreciate it, and thank you. I only know how to do this, and I'm willing to do this because someone did it for me. Someone showed up and shared their worst shit in the hardest moment and gave me strength to do the same thing. And then to bring it full circle, man, like, that boy back there means everything to me. If there's another person out there that feels like they can't get right, or the world's against them, or they're never going to do this, or DFS fucked me over, or, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, like, dude, I get it. And if me sharing any of my shit can offer somebody just a little bit of hope, even one person, it's all worth it, man. It's all worth it. So it's a thankless thing. It's like, I'll do this every day of the week and twice on Sunday, you know?
We opened June 12th, 23.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
48 bed facility. Took us a while to get.
It was 32 when we opened.
Exactly. That's where I was going. We've had how many people come through?
Over 700.
Yeah.
You gave me a stat, Nathaniel, that you've personally walked into treatment. Do you remember the number?
It's like 185 right now.
Just in this, that's 185 human beings that you've helped get to treatment. That isn't you had something to do with the rest of them. This is
that's just
you, and
since
and
June
that's not in the because you worked in treatment before we opened, right?
Yep.
I just
Yeah,
like
man.
that number is unfathomable. From a guy that grandma had to leave him in a fucking lobby.
Yeah, bro.
Dope
Think
sick.
about, we talked about this the other day, Chris, offline, but think about the families, right? And there's some real pretty statistics that I can't quote because I'm not that smart, but it's like 7 or 9. Jacob, you probably know it.
Yeah, I
For
think
every
it was
every person that gets clean, bro, like 7 or 9 or 10 or whatever, people are affected positively.
transformed.
We're talking about families,
Fuck
bro.
yes.
Families.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
a
man,
disease
it's
of a
fucking
family for
crazy.
sure.
And listen, like I started out as a tech at the treatment center that I got clean when I got my first year clean. And fast forward, I've been a certified peer specialist on a mobile opioid outreach task force. Sorry, that's a mouthful. I've been an outreach coordinator, a regional manager of business development, and now director of business development. And listen, man, like I don't say any of that to brag or gloat.
No.
Don't
If somebody
forget-
takes it like that, they get fuck off.
Don't
That's not what
forget
this
the
is.
beginning of the story where I said I have a high school equivalency, right?
Right.
Throughout this
They wouldn't
process,
let you walk.
Yeah. Throughout this process, I interviewed against people with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, right? And withstood the storm and got the chance. All I've ever needed was a chance, right? We are smart, talented individuals that make really poor decisions. That's my definition of a drug addict. And my story is a testament to that. Jacob, Chris, your guys' story is a testament to that. Like, we are the people that a hater better hope don't get clean because we're coming for your job. We're coming for your girl. I'm joking. We're coming for all the good things, man, because we deserve that shit. And we are the people that can change the world if we band together. This is why community works. This is why treatment works. 12 steps work. It's all about connection, man.
And
you know?
and it goes to like you are one of the happiest, goofiest motherfuckers I have ever met in my life.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that.
And there
That's by
was
design.
I had to be a time in your life that you'd never think you'd smile again. I sat with people. We sit with people all the time that think there's no fucking joy in life without their vice. And it's so much bullshit. You fucking smile $1 million big fucking fat cheeked smile and you're goofy as fuck. And I love you to death.
Thank you,
and
bro.
I'm so grateful for you.
Which, you know, I could echo the same things about you, man. Like what's ironic is those defects that we talked about in my story about the rebellion and the need for the attention and all these flamboyant characteristics I had. Now in my professional life, in my recovery life, they are all assets, right? Like they are all things that I possessed, fine-tuned in another direction. We're talking about from destruction to production, right? And when I use those in a way to be productive, man, I'm a killer, right? I have proved to myself time and time again, if I put my mind to it, I can do it. There's nothing I can't do because I've shown that.
I wouldn't bet against you.
So can our listeners, man.
Maybe I bet against you on the fucking golf course. So I've seen you donate about 18 balls. In the
Get
same
that
lake
ass
that one
whooped,
time.
dude. Hey, that was a perfect shot. It just happened to hit the water.
That's right. If the goal of the sport was to sink as many at the bottom of the lake, we would have fucking cashed.
Yeah, man. They call me the Jordan on the golf course, but whatever. It's like whatever.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead. You've been on listen mode today.
No, I've been on listen mode, but I've been thinking this whole time about how, you start smoking weed at 12.
Yeah.
And you barely know who you are as a person at that point.
Dude. Yeah.
And so what you are through this whole thing is like who you are is lost up until you get clean. How do you find yourself after that? How do you know who you are?
Listen, that's a really great point, Jeff. I'm glad you brought that up because we didn't even touch on that. So when I got clean and all the things that it took for me to get there, I've shared this often. I didn't know what fucking color I liked, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know what kind of music I liked or what I was into. Can you guys still hear me?
Oh, yeah, baby.
Oh, my headphones are telling me they're dying, so I might have to
Jeff,
switch
that was a good fucking question.
It was.
I love when you ask shit like that.
So everything I know about myself, Jeff, I have identified through the 12 steps in recovery, through other people, right? And through hard work. I couldn't tell you what my favorite color was. I couldn't tell you what I was into. And now I have a clear definition. of all of those things, who Nathaniel is, right? And so we're talking at 23. Yeah, smoking weed stunted my growth. It stunted my emotional growth. It stunted everything that led to more progressive, fatal, and incurable as our disease. Yeah, I learned all that later on in life. Whereas if you don't pick up drugs, you probably pick it up early and you bypass a little bit of pain. But yeah, I learned all that stuff in recovery, man.
That's interesting because I think that could be something that someone listening who's thinking about, jumping in finally.
Yeah.
They're like, who am I?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of an incentive. You're going to find out. And I think it's going to really
be fucking beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say one of the best sides of recovery, because I think every addict probably fits in that thing. Like, I don't know who I am when I got clean. The beautiful side of like working at least I'll speak for me and Nathaniel, because I feel like I can speak for him through our programs. We had same upbringing in the rooms. You get to become who you want to be in recovery. Like whatever you want to be or admire in other humans or those characteristics you wish we had or that self-love, like you got to develop that. So you don't really need to know who you are. You just want to know like, who do I want to be? And you can achieve it like through that. You're already doing the work anyways in recovery. You're changing everything. Might as well change it to who you want to be.
If you open the recovery literature and you happen to get to this page, you'll read it says lost dreams awaken, new possibilities arise. And that term alone is this in a nutshell. Like anything you thought you wanted to be, you can achieve. And things that you end up being are things that you thought were beyond your wildest imagination. Like, it's fucking incredible, man. Recovery rocks. I'm not just like, I hate the cliches just as much as anybody, man, but it fucking does.
They're there for a reason, man.
That's my life is because of it.
Serenity prayer, one day at a time. All that shit gets me through it. Especially when I'm in the valley, right? Because it's hills and valleys, and I could do this for fucking hours and hours and hours and chat with you. I want to have you back on, make you kind of a regular on this fucking show.
Back, bro. Part 2. I got more to say.
Yeah, I know you do, baby. But before we let you go, Chiefs -1.5.
No,
you're all over that.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not. It doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
No.
Pound your chest, baby.
Listen, I don't gamble and I don't condone gambling. Okay,
motherfucker, I was at the blackjack table with you in Las Vegas.
No, I changed my life, Chris. I'm not listening.
You're going
to
Vegas in a week.
So I placed a small wager with a friend of mine on this last game, and needless to say, I won. And now he's trying to throw out an astronomical number on the Super Bowl, and I'm like, oh man, it's the oldest part of my defected character and soul that wants to accept it. Just my ego.
That's what I was saying. He's challenging that ego, baby.
Dude, he's challenging the shit out of me. And it's not even about the money. It's like money is whatever. We'll do a podcast on my opinion of money later, but it's a lot of money. And I can do it. I shouldn't do it. I want to do it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that, so when you say Chiefs
work your steps,
yes
bro.
No,
work your steps.
Yeah, bro. Chiefs are winning this fucking game. It's history.
Repeat time.
We got to stop Saquon Barkley. That's a fact.
Nobody's been able to yet.
But they got to see us, man. Like, it's just my headphones just died. Hang on, let me put you guys back on my.
We can hear
speaker.
Can you hear us?
I have to wait.
All right, talk.
Can you hear us?
Testing.
That
You got a little
didn't work.
Peter.
Hold on
I
a
got a big
second.
one. Testing.
You guys
testing.
got me all messed up here. Say something.
You there, baby?
Oh, I can hear you. I can hear
I
you.
got a
I'm
little
here.
echo. That's good. Hey,
So yeah, Chiefs 1.5. I'll take it.
Nate.
Yo,
Natty Nate Dogg. I'll be your Warren G any day, brother.
come on, baby, let's go.
We love you to death.
My ears hurt.
What an episode. This is going to go down
Thanks,
in the books. And you got a little bit of an echo, so I don't know if we'll be able to edit that out. We're kind of
We'll
rookies.
see.
But I just want to say a couple things. I admire you infinitely. He's walking away.
Right.
We're getting ready to blow the guy, and he fucking walks away from me. Come on, let me fucking.
Did that help the echo?
Let me
I was
give you
turning
some
off
oral here.
I was turning off my little thing. Did that help the echo?
It's all good, baby. I just
Okay.
wanted to thank you, admire you, and just can't articulate it. I love you. We love you, and thanks for doing this.
Happy to do it, bro.
We'll talk soon. All right.
Yeah.
See you, Natty Nate.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you, brother. Thanks for listening. Please follow us, subscribe, do all the things you got to do on social media. It helps get the message out, the message of hope. Nathaniel Carpenter, presented by Bertarelli Cutlery. Check them out. They are big advocates in this space and are providers of second chance employment for people that, like Nate, that burned it all down and had to rebuild it. So we are thankful for our partners, Bertarelli Cutlery, Illinois Recovery Center, obviously, and good show, boys. We'll talk soon. Let us pray.